everyone, and welcome to another episode of LunarCRUSH Live. Today we've got Markus, partner at cLabs. We're going to be chatting Celo. Make sure you get in there, ask some questions in the chat. We'll try and get to as many of those at the end as we can. Obviously, you got to make a point to slam that subscribe button. We always have to. I'm sure you're sick of hearing it, but you got to do it. Also, our disclaimer, we do not take payment for our live streams. We bring on cool people and fun projects that are building in the space and trying to bring this whole industry forward. So with that, John, let's chat. Celo, what's going on?
Yeah, so Celo is a project that we added to LunarCRUSH in the last few months. And, a lot of interesting, exciting activity. Really, I'm going to say it again, beautiful website. If you haven't checked out their website, go do it. It's really well done, great videos and all that. So kudos to your marketing and design team there and your user experience team. So I'm going to go over a few different social metrics today. So when we look at the price, $3.14, it's up 7% over the last week. It's got a market cap of about 835 million, 24-hour volume of 20.46 million. And a circulating supply of about 266 million out of a billion max supply. When we look at just the last week, I just wanted to show some of the social metrics to give an idea of what we're looking at here. And it's early days, and there's a lot of growth ahead. And when we look at the social volume on a weekly basis, we're up 26% here. That's looking at the number of social mentions on an hourly basis, and we see things like up to about 43 social mentions on an hourly basis. We look at social engagement, and we're seeing some pretty interesting spikes in there. What that's looking at is the depth of the conversations that are being had across social channels. So if someone tweets about Celo, they use the ticker, they use a hashtag, they use the handle, they use really anything related to it. We pick up all of those social posts, and we see, are there a lot of comments back? Are there a lot of retweets? Is there a lot going on? And so we see that there's been some pretty interesting spikes, and I'll point out what that is in just a moment. When we look at the number of social contributors on an hourly basis, we're seeing up to about 57. And so, we're seeing like that increase. When you look at on a weekly basis, it's moving up. And when you see who that is, it gets even a little more interesting. So we see that the Celo handle on Twitter is the #1 most influential, followed by Cointelegraph, Upright VCamps, Anka, Bogdana, Rusu. I don't know if I said that right. I apologize. There you go. Celo developers. We've been promoting this live stream, so we're up there. Ria G. Oh man, QR, Symmetric.
Just keep trying to get it right.
There you go. Follow Renee and Berdost. And why are these the most influential? Well, it's because when they're posting, their posts continually get the most engagement. They've done the most posts about Celo, and they have the most followers relative to everyone else in their account. And pretty interesting when you look at some of the things that are being talked about over the last week here. So we were looking at, Deutsche Telekom selected Coinbase custody to store its Celo tokens. I like this one. They're talking about it's a mobile first, normie first approach. Can't tell you how important that is. So important. We were just on another stream. Someone was asking, how do I use this wallet? How do I transfer? How does this all work? And I think there's, a lot of user experience challenges still in crypto. But some of the more interesting things in here, like Celo ran a pilot in the first half of 2020 during COVID lockdowns to test a set of hypotheses around under-collateralized credit for Venezuelan migrants residing in Colombia. Would love to hear more about that. We're talking about DuniaPay and Celo, the next chapter of banking in West Africa. There's a lot in here. This one's amazing. Crypto-driven universal basic income as a tool to reach refugees during the pandemic. So really interesting. This sounds like there's a lot of work going on in developing markets. And so really a lot of interesting things to discuss here. So with that, let's bring our guest in.
Cool. Hey there, Markus. Welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, Joe. Hey, John. Great to be here.
Hey, Markus.
Thanks a lot for doing that. Exciting.
Yeah, we were just, John was doing the job for you, just getting it all out there.
Yeah, and already raised very exciting news, very exciting points. So happy to chat about this today.
Cool, man. Well, no, I appreciate you being on, and we had some fun going through the project last night and looking at the website and kind of what you guys are working on. And so yeah, we always like to start with where you are in the world and what's it like there today.
I'm in Berlin, and today it's a sunny day in Berlin, which is nice. We had very rainy weeks in Germany behind us. It's not the typical summer. So it's good that the sun is out. People can finally go back out. So it's a good day. And you chose a great background image for this stream here that already matches colors on the Celo webpage. So cool job.
Yeah, it's definitely on purpose there. So tell us a little bit about, I'd love to hear like your personal history, how you got into the space, what makes you so excited about crypto, why you dedicating your life to it and all that other good stuff.
Yeah, happy to talk about that. So I'm an economist. I started my career in research, studied economics, and did my PhD in economics. So did a lot of research on traditional portfolio theory, on macroeconomics, and other interesting topics. Worked at research institutions, and then went into traditional finance, I would call it today. So I worked in asset management. I was a portfolio manager for pension funds and for family offices. Also worked as an investment advisor, worked in investment banking. So all these traditional finance related topics where you can think about economics, think about data and risk and volatility and all these important topics, but on traditional asset classes. And then at a really nice bachelor's party, I met an old friend, René, one of the founders of Celo or co-creators of Celo. And he told me about on the one hand, the unbanked or underbanked, that a significant amount of people in the world don't have the same access to banking as we do, or access to traditional financial services. And he also told me about how powerful blockchain technology is, and they are also out of MIT, just starting a project called Celo, which is an Esperanto word for purpose. So I looked deeper into it, and he told me that I could help on the economic side, and that got me really exciting. Continue to think about economics, making economics work on Celo, thinking also about monetary theory and all these things, but with a very exciting and powerful technology that can be much more inclusive, that can help many people to be part of a financial system, and to create conditions for prosperity for everyone.
So I have to ask, so Markus, with such a big traditional economic background, I guess, how do you see the world today, and how do you see the current crypto market today in that world?
It's a good question, because this is actually also something we would like to change with Celo. In the traditional world, only very limited people so far use crypto for remittances, for day-to-day payments, for settlement payments, even for saving, for lending, for borrowing, for all these things. And we looked very closely why that is. And it's, of course, because crypto sometimes can be complicated to use for people who are not crypto native or not working in this industry. Crypto is also very volatile, and therefore there are many reasons why in the world today people still, for day-to-day transactions in many parts of the world, don't use crypto for it. And I think here we actually can make a difference with what we are building. We're building something that is mobile first, and therefore trying to get real use cases to crypto and real adoption via mobile phones. And since you also asked about the state of the world today, it's also interesting to see that for the last hundreds of years, there was no real innovation on money itself. There was a lot of innovation in like payments technology for a few fortunate people that now can maybe pay with their credit card just by touch, and this goes relatively fast, and they don't even see the fees that the merchant in the background has to pay for it. That is nice, but money itself, we haven't seen a lot of innovation. So with this technology, you can actually see so many super interesting things now coming to life. Like, for example, a universal basic income when we tie money to an identity. Or you could see stable coins, stable currencies that make remittances worldwide much cheaper and faster. You could also see specific use case currencies, and you can see also local currencies. You can imagine nature-backed asset currencies. All these interesting ideas that are possible on this technology and possible on Celo are really exciting and make me very, very happy and excited to be in this space.
Before we get to real quick,
I just wanted to add a personal story to this. It's like, because I just went to New York City and I just got back yesterday. And when I was in the airport, when I landed and when I took off, not a single retailer in the airport restaurant, none of them are taking cash. None. They only are taking credit cards right now. So if you just think about that for a second, how crazy is that? Like when you say that there's been no innovation in actual money, like they're choosing to pay fees in a really inefficient, it's not an efficient system, using paper money.
True.
It just blows my mind.
Yeah, it's not an efficient money. And this is at the New York airport. If you go to Berlin, there's like many stores that don't accept credit cards because the fees on credit cards are insanely high. And then if you go to other parts of the world where people can't get a credit card, there's again a different story. And then you have also parts of the world where people have, for different reasons, problems to get access to a stable currency, maybe because their local currency is hyperinflationary. So it's like all these different reasons why I would say there's a lot of potential to change the system, to make it not only more resistant, not only faster and more efficient, but also making it more safe and more stable for users out there. And I think here we are just at the start of what this technology can actually do. So exciting times ahead.
Great. Cool.
Yeah, and before I do want to get to crypto made for mobile, right? And the strategy behind kind of like leading with that. But I just want to make a quick just reaction and comment of like, someone that's coming from more traditional side, wealth management, whether you're working with like larger clients or larger banks, and there's different currencies around the world. But did you think, when you were in university or when you were kind of growing up, like seeing just the proliferation, like you're saying, we're just at the beginning, right? And I think we all know that there's over 8,000 traded cryptocurrencies now. Like, did you ever think that there'd be this many mediums of exchange?
No, I didn't see that coming, and also didn't see that coming so quickly. When I left this old world 4 years ago, I was chatting with folks from the Bank for International Settlements and told them I'm now going into the blockchain space, and I'm building a mobile-first blockchain. And they told me, "Wow, dude, that is crazy. You have a good job. You're in traditional finance. You're working with us. So that is just like, don't touch that."
Yeah.
And over the last 4 years, they changed their opinion on all this so much, because not only central banks also see that they have done a bad job on building something or building an inclusive system, they also see that the system is really inefficient, and they also see the power of this technology. So from in these 4 years, I'm now working in this industry, if you can already call it an industry. The Bank for International Settlements was going from, wow, this is just pure craziness, to that is actually a powerful technology. Every central bank in the world should also look at it. So it's a very, very rapid change.
So where do you think you saw the light a little bit, and maybe some of your coworkers there didn't see the light? Like, what do you think switched for you? And then, they're telling you, man, you're crazy, you should never do this. And you're like, I'm definitely doing this.
So I think one thing here with this technology is that here, I mean, every project that starts every startup talks about making the world a little bit better. So no matter if they are, I don't know, are a delivery service for food, or they're building routers, or they are working in the blockchain industry, everyone is saying they try to make the world a bit better. But here with this technology, I can actually see a very realistic shot to make that happen, to make payments more efficient, much cheaper, and more inclusive for everyone. And I mean, for me, I'm living in Berlin, having access to a bank, having access to a credit card. The day-to-day payments for me probably are relatively efficient, because I don't see what, for example, the merchant pays when I do a purchase there. But already, if I would like to send you a wire transfer from Berlin to New York, that already gets tricky, because if I use the traditional banking rails, then it takes 4 days and I pay 10% of fees. And I could just do this transfer on Celo and send you Celo dollar just by knowing your mobile phone number. And this payment arrives within 5 seconds. And I pay less than a basis point in fees, and it's super easy. I just need to know your phone number. So I think here, like, even for us, we can make a very rapid and extreme difference. Also in the whole DeFi space, in lending and borrowing, but we can basically build it inclusive and build it for so many people who don't have this access I have, and therefore, this for me is super important. There's a very realistic chance to make something, or to build something that changes the world.
Amazing, yeah. So as soon as you heard about it, your mind just went all the way down. You're like, holy crap, this is changing everything. And yes, it's going to disrupt everything. I felt the same way. So I mean, you touched a little bit about all you need to do is put in your, send it like a mobile phone number, right? And we talk about experience all the time in this space. And so is that, talk a little bit about why, you drop on your guys' homepage and it's made for mobile, crypto made for mobile. Why are you guys leading with that? Why is that so important?
That's a very good point. Very good transition. So Celo is, I would say, the first mobile-first blockchain with this extreme focus on mobile. And mobile is very important to us, because today in the world, if you look, for example, at the Ericsson Mobility Report, there are already 8 billion smartphones in the world. So a lot of people now have access to a smartphone. But not only access to a smartphone, also connectivity in the world is getting better and better. So with this 8 billion smartphones, in a few years, 90% of the users worldwide have either 3G or better, which is great. So also connectivity is getting better. So there are lots of mobile devices, and therefore we see there's huge potential to bring crypto to these 8 billion people. And with it, not only payments and remittances, but also lending, borrowing, the whole DeFi space to to smartphones. Building for mobile is not easy. For example, the apps or the dApps that live on Celo, they really have to focus on the most important things because you build for a small screen. But if you do that, and if you start with it, and if you lead it, and then scale up and also build web wallets and so on, it's much easier because you already had to focus in your first application. Mobile is also very secure. It has many interesting benefits, but a blockchain on the protocol level has to be like ready to support mobile phones or ultralight clients. So transactions on the Celo network are around 700,000 times lighter than on other blockchains. And the Celo network supports ultralight clients so that you can actually transact with this blockchain and interact with this blockchain with a very cheap, very simple Android phone, no matter where in the world you are. So just because of this huge adoption of mobile, I think building something very inclusive has to be mobile first. And this is how we thought about it from the start. But when we talk today about Celo, we typically say it's mobile, it's open, it's real. The other nice features is it's open, so it's fully permissionless. It's a proof of stake blockchain. Everyone can build applications on top of it. It's a Ethereum fork and fully compatible with the Ethereum virtual machine. So smart contracts are built in Solidity. That means if you've built applications on top of Ethereum, you can very easily port them over to Celo and build your mobile-first applications, which is also very important to create a very vibrant developer community. The cool thing is, currently the developer community is steadily growing. The Celo Foundation is giving grants and is very proud that we now have builders in 113 countries around the world.
Wow.
So very international. And then this last part of mobile, open, and real is building for real use cases. So as I said, real payments, real transactions, remittances, but also DeFi, lending, borrowing, all these things. That is a broad overview. And just to give an example, what already works today. So there are stable coins on Celo. Celo Dollar was the first one. Second one was Celo Euro. And if I send a Celo Dollar to someone, I just need to know their phone number. And when I know the phone number, I can actually do it from my phone book. I could use, for example, the Valora app, which is a payments app on top of Celo, and that integrates my phone book, so I can actually look up a number in my phone book, send a Celo Dollar there. The Celo Dollar arrives within 5 seconds when the person already has Valora. If not, they would get a short message saying, Markus sent a payment, it's held in escrow until you unlock it. And this all smart contract based. And the two cool features are additionally that gas fees are super low, less than a basis point on that transaction. It's very fast, and I can pay the transaction fees, for example, for Celo Dollar in Celo Dollar, so I don't need a different currency. And if I send you Celo Euro, I can pay also for gas in Celo Euro. So that makes it very easy to send from phone to phone. That was a long answer. Sorry.
Hey, no, it's great. No, it's a nice walkthrough of just trying to understand a little bit. I think it's really cool that you can send this to someone's phone number and it's held in the smart contract until they almost go and claim it, right? Yeah. So it's like, hey, we can onboard new people. All I need is your phone number, and I don't even need you to accept yet. I'm just sending it there. Just hopefully you don't change your phone number in the next couple of days, before I send you that money. But if
people do that, I still can claim my send it money back as the sender. At some point, it would automatically go back. if I use, for example, Valora and lose my phone or change my phone number, there are still ways how I can basically recover my wallet. I need to remember a seed phrase, and then I can recover my wallet.
Great.
All right, I want to bring up a really, you've mentioned inclusivity quite a lot here, and there's a really incredible tweet that I'll read here from the Refugee Integration Organization that Celo retweeted. It says, "We made the news in Ghana today with crypto-based universal basic income, turning refugee camps into microeconomies," and it's hashtag built on Celo. So this is interesting. There was even a tweet yesterday from a famous American politician, from Andrew Yang, saying cryptocurrency is one path to universal basic income. Well, this is taking it a whole lot further. So I'd be really curious what's behind that tweet that I read. That's awesome.
And I mean, this is the nice thing where I say now we can innovate on money. If you tie money to some form of identity, you can enable universal basic income because people now, for example, can register with their phone number and can receive a universal basic income. And there are universal basic income projects starting around the world, in Ghana, in Brazil, in Venezuela. So there's a interesting project, Impact Market, that basically creates universal basic income systems for their beneficiaries, where each beneficiary can claim a fixed amount on a regular basis. And they already distributed close to 1 million Celo dollar. They have more than 50,000 beneficiaries. And as I said, it's in communities like in Brazil, in Venezuela, in Ghana. And I think this is a very exciting development. And actually, I said more than 15,000 beneficiaries. I think currently it's even more than or close to 20,000 beneficiaries in 100 communities around the world. And the interesting thing, when you talk to the local program leads that on-ramp people into these universal basic income projects, is that at first you can typically see that people can come basically every day and cash out what they get, because it's, of course, it's something new, but the more they gain trust in it, that they actually can cash out every day and can claim their money also in fiat if they don't want to keep, for example, the Celo dollar, that then already creates a bit of trust. And this is nice because this changes then the behavior. People then start to see and look and learn what else can they do with it. And then, for example, in Valora, they see, hey, I actually can earn rewards by holding on to some of the earnings I have, like this universal basic income. I can earn additional rewards. I can maybe even do payments in certain shops in my community. I can do also send money around the world as well, maybe to my family that lives either in another refugee camp or maybe in a different country. So all these things, when they learn about it, they also start to trust. And what you then see is that these ecosystems develop really, really quickly around Celo, around these universal basic income schemes, maybe even around the wallet app Valora. So that is, I think, a very interesting development we see now in many different countries. And therefore, it's really cool that building open source enables all these things, because now many different projects can build also their charity solutions on top of it. And Impact Market and giving universal basic income is one example. Another example I think you also called out when going through the most popular tweets was this project the Grameen Foundation did in the Philippines, where women that before the COVID pandemic were able to support their families and due to COVID couldn't anymore, received support payments, again, in Valora, in Celo dollars, via Celo. And there we could see the same thing. Everyone was super happy. Everyone said it's very intuitive, very easy. And it is so efficient also for the charity foundation, in this case for Grameen, because they don't need to handle cash. They actually have a very good overview on the beneficiaries. They can distribute daily, weekly, just via a smart contract. Celo, as a platform, has the so-called Alliance for Prosperity. And in this Alliance for Prosperity, there are currently, I think, 140 or 150 mission-aligned organizations. And these organizations are in all these different use cases: remittances, saving, lending, borrowing, DeFi, building, but also in charity. And Impact Market is one example. Grameen Foundation is another example. But you can also see Give Directly, Mercy Corps, so very interesting projects in this in this Alliance for Prosperity. And again, similar to the platform itself, this alliance is open, is of course free of cost or charge. People that join the alliance, or projects that join the alliance, should be mission aligned in building something inclusive, enabling this technology to enable their users. And yeah, we also now see traditional projects and companies joining the alliance. Very recently in Deutsche Telekom and with its T-Mobile joined the Alliance for Prosperity. This is a super interesting development because T-Mobile has 240 million mobile users. If they enable everyone to send remittances via mobile phone, this has huge potential. Also, PayU joined the Alliance for Prosperity. It's a organization that provides payment systems for merchants. They have a lot of merchants they're working with, and they also enable the merchants to accept Celo currencies. So yeah, we are very happy about these recent developments.
So these organizations that are joining the Alliance for Prosperity, they are funding certain projects out there. I guess, how does that all kind of flow together? Like down to the level of universal basic income, for refugees, I suppose. Like, is that what's funding that?
Yeah. So in the end, the Alliance for Prosperity is open for everyone that can or agrees with this mission to build a more inclusive system that creates the conditions for prosperity for everyone. So all these organizations that join the Alliance for Prosperity are very mission aligned on that. Then typically these organizations have a lot of users and they want to use Celo technology to enable their users and make this technology to their users available. And then where, for example, funding for these projects comes from is very different. So it could be that, for example, Grameen Foundation raises charity funds for this project in the Philippines from a different source, from a different donor, but then exchange it into Celo or Celo dollar or Celo euro and then use it for the payments program. It's maybe important to call out that not only the Celo platform is permissionless and fully decentralized, it's also all based on the Celo governance token, capital letter Celo, that you also showed in the beginning of this video. The Celo governance token allows you to take part in governance, to stake and vote for validators. You can earn staking rewards for doing that. The governance token also allows you to take part in governance, which means, for example, a decision what should be the next stablecoin launching on Celo is a governance decision. And by holding the Celo governance token, you can actually take part in that. And then basically next to this governance token, there are also these stablecoins on Celo, like Celo dollar and Celo euro. And the nice thing is that the more demand you create for the stable assets, Celo dollar, Celo euro, the more demand there is for this governance asset. So there's also a token economic link between those. So the whole system basically is based on this governance token.
I got a question about governance, and you being an economist and looking at kind of world governments, and it's like when you think about the traditional system, right? And then you kind of talked about this paradigm shift of a jump in technology. And that's why I think like people with the UBI example from before, they're like, how is this even possible? It's like, well, there's been no invention on money in so long that people almost don't believe it's possible. But something that's interesting that you see a little bit of in this space, and I'm not exactly sure like how like Celo is set up like this way, but in some kind of layer one networks, you know, there's some folks that own a lot of a specific governance token, right? And so if these other projects are trying to potentially get voted up for something that they're trying to go for, you're seeing, you know, like I would say similar activity that you would see in like a traditional government, like lobbying, for example, right? Where someone's like, hey, like help me get this law passed that allows me to like burn coal in this area that I shouldn't, right? And in crypto, that would be, hey, we'll give you a bunch of our token if you, governance token holder that has a lot, vote for this other thing. How do we prevent against some of that? And like, how do you guys look at that specifically, you know, whether it's like releasing a small amount over time, or like, how do you decentralize even more so that certain parties aren't like so influential?
It's a great question. And I think also something the whole blockchain world still struggles with.
Right.
I think proof of stake made many things much more efficient than, for example, proof of work. The nice thing about proof of stake especially is that it's much more emission efficient. So there are much less emissions from a proof of stake governance algorithm than a proof of work. The Celo blockchain is actually carbon negative currently, and not only because it's proof of stake, but also because of an offset on the protocol level of the remaining emissions that is done together with Project Ren. But this is just a side note, so that basically proof of stake made things more efficient, especially from also an environmental perspective. But we are trying to build a fully decentralized system, and then you can sometimes see exactly what you said, that either a centralized party holds all the governance token, or you can also see that some blockchains are going down because Google Cloud or AWS is going down, and all the nodes are running on that. So we are trying to build for a fully decentralized, but there are, of course, many challenges to actually do that. I think for us, one thing is important to bridge this world of the crypto natives, the DeFi protocols, also the other protocols out there, like engaging with them, because this world is extremely important for us, because here they are the builders also of the other blockchains. And therefore, we are working a lot on interoperability to other blockchains to also keep or stay decentralized from that perspective. Then also bringing traditional non-crypto or non-crypto native projects into this world, like Deutsche Telekom or PayU or end users around the world, also helps with decentralization. For example, Deutsche Telekom could help because they are running their own server farms, which are, from a technical perspective, uncorrelated to a downtime risk of, I don't know, the other cloud providers, which is already adding robustness. And then I think it's very important also to give grants to the countries where you would like to see adoption, to projects that are actually in country building for their own communities. And with this, you also keep a system decentralized. I mentioned in the beginning, we now have 113 builders in, we have thousands of builders in 113 countries around the world. I think this makes it also very decentralized because, for example, Celo Foundation is giving grants in all these countries to develop local ecosystems. We, as one project, as cLabs, we cannot like build everything and hold on to token or anything. That wouldn't work in all these different countries because we actually maybe don't know what are the biggest like use cases or the biggest challenges in these countries. So I think here, this, for example, a clever grants program, a very long-term approach in terms of block rewards, a decentralized approach to validators, a steadily increasing set of validators. All this helps with decentralization.
And what does the process look like to qualify for some of these grants for developers or teams, maybe even people that are outside, like you said, of the space that are coming in? How do they get involved?
And actually, grants is only one way to get started to build on Celo and get an initial funding. So basically, if you, for example, go to the Celo webpage, celo.org, at the bottom you can find the grant kit, which in a very detailed way leads you through a grant application if you want to build something on Celo. And I think that is a first and very interesting way. A second thing would be there's also Celo Camp. Celo Camp is a boot camp / incubator with prizes, with mentors, also with funding based on prizes, and it basically teaches you how to build on Celo. It's a virtual boot camp, so you can join from anywhere, and you get really cool mentors from the space, and not only from cLabs, but also from cool projects like, for example, Polychain or Andreessen Horowitz or others. There's also ecosystem funds. For example, the Flori ecosystem fund, the Andreessen and Polychain ecosystem fund, and others. So there are many different ways. If you have a great idea to, for example, get a initial funding or to get initial insights on how to build on Celo. A second thing next to all these funding initiatives and boot camps and so on is, I think it's also important when building open source to make the code very accessible. So we've done a lot to build out a good documentation of the code on docs.celo.org, so that people not only can check out the GitHub repo, but also can read up in docs to see how things are working. That's hopefully also helping. And then I think it's chat.celo.org leads you to a Discord channel that is very active, where you can engage with other projects building on Celo, with other builders and developers on Celo, which is also, I think, very helpful.
Yeah, a lot of resources. I never share another company's footer with our team saying this is a really great footer, but you guys have a lot of really good resources on there and a lot of social channels. And just hearing you talk, and it's we do talk to a lot of projects, and I think when people saw all of this start with cryptocurrency, they were like, oh, there's these different markets that are happening in these different projects, and these are all their own things, right? But what they don't realize is that just the proliferation of new business models and other companies that are built on top of all of these other individual things. They didn't know that 1 plus 1 was going to equal infinity, and it's that's the world that we're living in now, which is insane.
True. And also currently in the works, and we've talked about this a lot at the recent Ethereum conference in Paris, is the Optics protocol. Optics is basically a communication layer that builds or that is the foundation for communication between different EVM compatible chains, which then in a second step also enables bridges between all these chains. So you could then imagine having a Bitcoin on Celo and sending it in 5 seconds, because the Celo block time is 5 seconds, to a mobile phone at much lower cost. And I think also here, this is the great thing about this community, that it's very open and that it actually likes to work together, in contrast to my old world, where you basically try to keep your competitors or everybody else as far as possible out, and build walls and Chinese walls and within the companies. So I think
Corporate.
this is nice.
True. I'd like to talk about stable coins a little bit here. So you mentioned the Celo dollar and the Celo euro. It's fresh on my mind because I had someone send me, there's I guess Tether did an attestation of their assets, and it was breaking down. It's there's T-bills, there's repo notes, there's commercial paper, CDs, like they've got a lot of these traditional assets, and I'm just curious, like, how do you manage to keep keep assets behind your dollar and your euro stablecoins?
Yes, it's a good question. And I think the first and very important point is that the Celo blockchain allows for embedded stablecoins. I think I mentioned this before, but embedded stablecoins means that, like, at the smart contract levels, it is enabled that I can pay for gas in multiple currencies, which means I can pay for gas in Celo dollar if I send Celo dollar, or in Celo euro if I send Celo euro, which makes it very easy to use. Then a second point on the stablecoins, more directed towards your question, is these are algorithmic stablecoins. So there's a smart contract-based protocol that incentivizes users to expand or contract the supply of stablecoins depending on varying levels of demand, and therefore keep the price stable. I think having it smart contract based is great because it is auditable, it is open source, people can actually verify what the protocol is doing. And then having it built in a way that it actually incentivizes users by giving users arbitrage opportunities if the stablecoin at a centralized exchange would trade at a different price, makes it very, very fast, or like reacts very fast to varying levels of demand, and therefore is I think a good system that also in the long run can stay stable, that also in the long run can scale to high amounts of liquidity. And therefore, I think it's good. And then underpinning this expansion and contraction mechanism is a crypto-only reserve. And this crypto-only reserve consists, of course, of the Celo governance asset, but there are also other assets in this crypto-only reserve, like, for example, Bitcoin and DAI and ETH. Now we are adding, or the Celo community is actually adding tokenized carbon credit. And this is maybe an interesting side story. Already in the first Celo white paper, there was this idea actually by Charles Eisenstein and Sepp Kamwa that this technology enables that currencies on Celo can actually be backed by things we would like to see more of. So, for example, when the dollar was backed by gold, people started to mint gold because it's like printing money. So why not back currency with trees or carbon credit, and therefore people start to plant trees or give carbon credit a higher value and make carbon emissions more expensive. And the Celo reserve has a lot of potential to go in that direction, because on the one hand, it's nice, it's good for the environment, it's something we would like to see more of. And on the other hand, it also diversifies the assets in the reserve into other risk factors, like, for example, carbon credit or forest. To summarize a bit, the Celo stability mechanism is algorithmic. It has the seigniorage asset, the Celo governance asset, but it also has a reserve that is crypto only, so that everyone can verify that the reserve is actually in place.
And I guess on a related topic, what do you think about stablecoins that are backed by traditional assets? Does that present systemic risk to crypto if something were to go wrong?
I mean, I don't think it presents systemic risk. It's just a very different risk than these algorithmic stablecoins. It is, of course, less transparent because if they are backed by traditional assets, in most cases currently, they are backed by bank credit, the fiat-backed stablecoins, has many different effects, I would say. One thing is about that, it's backed by bank credit. This means credit has credit risk. This means it depends on the bank liquidity if the collateral is actually in place. then there's still a risk because, credit always has a credit risk. Every bank has a counterparty risk. Therefore, maybe some regulators in the world say if it's a fiat-backed stable coin, then we actually need to regulate the bank that holds the collateral because it's not based on smart contracts. It's not easy for the user to see if the collateral is actually there. Therefore, somebody has to do it and has to verify it. Therefore, it's a very easy stability mechanism since it's basically very directly pegging the stablecoin to the underlying fiat, but it's very complicated to evaluate the counterparty risk of the bank, for example. I think then a second thing next to, or maybe a third thing next to transparency and counterparty risk and so on is we can actually have multiple stable coins also on Celo. So you could see in future algorithmic stable coins on Celo, but also maybe fiat-backed, maybe central bank-backed stable coins and so on. I think the first and most important thing is that the blockchain, the layer one, is efficient and enables very fast transactions. But yeah, then all these different stablecoins maybe have competing and different risks, and sometimes for users it's hard to evaluate the risk of a fiat-backed stablecoin versus a fully decentralized and algorithmic stablecoin. But I still believe in also here in open source, in people looking at the code, and people being able to see that like what is happening, and therefore I see a lot of value in there.
I think it's pretty interesting, just with like the big hack that happened yesterday. Tether froze like $90 million, I think. And at least that's what a couple of tweets, don't quote me too much on it, but I think they froze a large subset of that. And that kind of brings up an interesting piece there of, so if I'm like, they could just freeze my Tether at any point in time. Yeah. And what does that, that takes you down a completely different rabbit hole.
Yeah, true. And it's still not censorship resistant because, probably the Tether banks, wherever they are, they can be, also the assets there can be frozen, they can be regulated, they can go bankrupt, they can go illiquid. So it's not censorship resistant. It's still a centralized, I would say, approach. But on the other hand, Tether has huge liquidity, so it's very easy to use Tether, and I think it just has a very different risk profile. So probably you have very low risk in, like, if you estimate volatility by just looking at historic prices, but you have high potential tail risk in like crazy events happening.
Yeah, and it's a step. It's a step away from the old system. It's probably a step in the right direction, but we're innovating so quickly that it's like you just got to keep pushing it. I do have let's stick on stable coins, the most interesting topic that we could possibly find, right? But I really think there's something about it because you see a lot of stable coins pegged to the US dollar. Obviously, the US dollar's been around a long time. It's very powerful. You see it like on the euro, which is like a newer currency, based on like just history. And then you see some other ones like a Singaporean dollar. But at some point, it's like, okay, like you said, there's counterparty risk, and you're taking counterparty risk in that sense against these governments, which like really, if all of these like super hardcore native crypto everything, it's like that's what people are trying to get away from. So it's like, why do you think we haven't seen almost like a blended stable coin or like a stable coin for crypto that's like using some sort of inflation, maybe small inflationary mechanism off of maybe like Bitcoin or something else? Like, why don't we have this like blended crypto stablecoin that like everyone's agreed on yet?
Yes, it's a great question, and I really would like to see it very soon on Celo. But like starting first with like there are so many dollar-backed stablecoins. especially all the fiat-backed stablecoins are dollar-based. And this has a very easy reason, because interest rates in the US are positive. So the protocol or the project actually earns the interest rate differential between like zero interest on the stablecoin and then positive interest on the collateral. And this can be a lot of money if the stablecoin grows quickly. In Europe, the story is very different. We have negative interest rates now for years, and they are still continuing to be negative on bank deposits. So you can't build a fiat-backed stablecoin based on the euro. Either you would lose money or you would have to charge your users. So it's not as easy. And therefore, again, a big advantage for this building decentralized algorithmic stablecoins on Celo. Here you don't have the problem of the negative interest rate. And then the other thing you mentioned, this is like totally possible. And we see now after Celo Dollar and Celo Euro in DunyaPay in West Africa actually initiated a local currency, a local stablecoin, the Celo West African franc. So we see like that also this stablecoin universe is quickly growing, and you could then either build a stablecoin that is stable to some basket of crypto, like you said, but you could also imagine stablecoins that maybe are stable to a local basket of goods people are purchasing in their local area that might be very different from area to area. So a lot of potential to have all these different types of currencies, which again brings us back to now we can actually innovate on money and have like all these different types of stablecoins as well.
Don't you think these banks, especially like you're saying in Europe, if there's negative interest rates and, you know, like you guys are making it easy, put in your phone number and, you know, now get some exposure to even a very basic, you know, 3-4% that could be out there where there's, you know, coins that are doing much more than that are, you know, still have like a lot of liquidity. I mean, wouldn't you be like, are your old buddies panicking at these banks? Like, I feel like I would be panicking, thinking like, well, it's just a matter of time. I'm protecting this money that's here, but we've seen how quickly that could move. It's like, I feel like I would like, unless there's just, they've got blinders on, they're like, no, this is not actually going to happen. But I feel like, especially in an area where there's negative rates, I just feel like there should be some sort of panic, and maybe they're just not seeing it.
And you can see this panic in the form of there are now like hundreds of central bank conferences, business commercial bank conferences, Bank for International Settlement conferences on this topic on crypto, because they now know we have to look at it. And probably every large bank now has at least a small department or a person that looks into it. And when we talk to them, I mean, of course, you could panic. On the other hand, you could also just like look at this technology, look at the potential of technology, and interpret your role in a new and different way. As a bank, you know your users. So you could be a KYC AML instance. As a bank, you could provide interesting on and off ramps for users who want to send crypto around the world. As a bank, you could be a validator on Celo and validate payments. Since this like technology is open source, it's open source for the blockchain world, for the DeFi protocols, but it's also open source for the banks, so they can also look at it and use it. So yeah, I think my call would be they should look at it in a productive way.
How unrelated, super fun topic about banks. What do you see the role of a bank being stuck between crypto on one side and CBDCs on the other? I'm looking at it like if a government has a CBDC and I've got a wallet on my phone as a citizen of that country, I have a direct channel. Why do I need the bank?
I have basically
and then if I have crypto, why do I need the bank?
Yeah, it's a good point. I as a customer of that country, I now have direct access to the reserves of the central bank, and then the commercial bank should worry about the disintermediation that would cause this. But also here I would say the banks can have this great opportunity to interpret their role new, and therefore, for example, all the neobanks hey, please consider building an integration to Celo. You could allow your customers on their mobile phone in your app to send Celo dollars, Celo euros around the world. You can have like a wallet in Celo dollar. They can have the traditional fiat wallet with you. So they can like be the link between fiat, be the link to crypto, which is a still super interesting link. I mean, many businesses or all businesses in most countries still, for example, have to pay their taxes in fiat. So this link has to like be in place for quite some time. And if I were a bank, I would now like look into this link and focus on that and provide that, because then I would be like, ready for this new future.
So interesting.
Yeah, I feel like we could just go through. It's just such an interesting time, especially like here in the U.S. There's a lot of, there's a lot of talk from a legislation standpoint of what's going to happen, and but the prices of cryptocurrency keep kind of moving up. Everyone that's been asking, they're like, well, wasn't that really negative? I'm like, I don't have an opinion. Just go look at the market, right, and see what the market is deciding on what's happening. And I think, like you're saying, a lot of the people that are out there are trying to figure out how do we navigate this now, right? Because it's very simple. Anyone, under the age of 25 is going to go very simply figure out how to get 6 or 7%, right? And like, I just think back to like, grandparents that, back in the day buying, like treasury notes and like little, like, and after 30 years getting paid out like, 40% or whatever it may be. And then looking at this market and saying, man, there's projects that are moving up 40% in a couple of hours, right? So it's like, if you make one move, you potentially could do as well as what it used to take 30 years to do, which is crazy and sometimes asinine to think that that's not going to be sustainable whatsoever. But what is sustainable is these countries are now going to compete against each other to do the same thing that these projects are technically doing, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm the US and I have a CBDC, then that's awesome, because then someone in some other country that I did not have access to before can hold my stable coin, right, and secure my network. And it's the same battle that they're waging against the rest of the countries with what they're doing with currency. But now it's just, you've added 5,000 new things into it, but the rest of this market is so far ahead.
Yeah, true. And it's also interesting to see that like many, especially like institutional players, went into this space not in the first like bull run of Bitcoin, but actually in the first crash, because they saw it crashing, but they saw it also that it didn't go to zero. So They realized there is some value in this technology. So we have to look at it. I mean, as with every newer economy growing up or new market, there are like hype cycles. There's a lot of speculation, and probably we need this here and there to then also have some crash that clean out the ecosystem and make room for new things.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've touched on so many interesting developments in this overall space. So I'm very positive.
Awesome, man. Well, we're at the hour here, and I feel like we can do another hour on stablecoins if we wanted to, but no, man, I really appreciate you coming on, and it's been fun to just kind of pepper you with some of these questions and have a good conversation. And I think it's, people like yourself moving from the traditional world into our world, and, being here for a long time now and building, that's really what makes this so special. So, I think what's happening at Celo is amazing. And I think people are going to really start to see some of that stuff. And you guys, great backers, great website, great design. And John and I feel you with designing for mobile first. We're going through that right now. I can just see it in John's face. He's probably reviewing designs on the right side while we're doing that. But
don't make an announcement yet.
But no, man, I really appreciate it. Where can people find you? Where can people find Celo? How do they get involved?
Also appreciate a lot. It was a very interesting, fun, great conversation. I liked it a lot. I think good start to look more into Celo is either like the Celo webpage on celo.org. People can find me Also on Telegram, for example, Markus_F is my Telegram handle. People can check out the Celo Discord chat on chat.celo.org. So many things to get in touch. People should check out, for example, the Celo Bootcamp, because it's a very interesting incubator that teaches so much more, also on a technical level that I couldn't teach, for example, and therefore, check it out and build something amazing.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, no, appreciate it. And everyone listening, thank you so much. You'll be able to find this on YouTube tomorrow, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Twitch, you name it, Facebook. Keep going. And John, as always, man, this was awesome. And Markus, will chat with you backstage, my man. Thank you.